Welcome back, folks. There's a new video about the new mechanics for the Swedish vehicles released for Wargaming North America, and I presume for EU as well as RU, but it talks about the new mechanics for the hydro-pneumatic suspension, so basically for the tank destroyers, quote-unquote, the main battle tanks, which applies to the STRV 103-0, the 0 series at Tier 9, and the B series at Tier 10, so 2 vehicles. And I think it also applies to the Tier 8, the UDES-03. So 3 vehicles that needs hydro-pneumatic suspension, new mechanics for the guns, because the guns are literally bolted, locked, fixed to the hull. Not really in the case for the UDES-03 because it could elevate the gun a little bit, but I wonder if they're going to talk about it. So I haven't watched this video, I know nothing about it, so this is going to be a live reaction video. I have the stats of the STRV 103B, the preliminary stats on the bottom, so I'll show you guys coming right up, but I wonder how well does the new mechanics described in this video will apply and mix with the stats. So does the stats fit well with the mechanics? I hope so, but let's take a look. So live reaction, please don't disappoint me.
Hello everyone, I'm Yuri and I work in the game balance department. Today we'll tell you about the planned branch of Swedish vehicles. It may seem strange, but Sweden, despite being a small country, has been very prolific in creating unique and interesting vehicle models. During our research, we realized that there could be a branch of heavy tanks, several branches of light and medium tanks, depending on what is needed, an artillery branch, and 2 branches of tank destroyers. All vehicles are interesting and unique in a varying degree. Some of them have unique gameplay and an original appearance that may be interesting for many players. For now, we will add the vehicles that are the most interesting for a wide audience. They are the branch of medium and heavy tanks, and the branch of tank destroyers. The TD branch is crowned by a vehicle that is famous among tank fans, the STRV 103B.
One of the main features of the Swedish TD branch is that these vehicles can adjust their gun traverse and elevation by using their hulls. You will be able to raise and lower the hull due to the hydro-pneumatic suspension. The Tier 8 vehicle will be able to aim using both its original elevation angles and
That's
its
pretty cool.
raising or lowering its hull. The peculiar feature of the Tier 9 and 10 vehicles is that their gun is sealed into the hull, so the gun traverse and elevation are performed only by hull traverse and raising or lowering the nose.
That's pretty
The
neat.
gameplay feature of these vehicles is that they will have 2 modes,
Oh no.
travel mode and firing mode.
In its basic
What?
mode, the vehicle is able to roll and turn. It can fire, of course, but the dispersion is very high.
The basic mode doesn't provide for effective fire. It's designed for taking positions, leaving those positions, and moving around the map. After it takes an advantageous position,
What?
the vehicle, thanks to its good concealment, switches into a siege mode and starts delivering fire from its very effective gun at any available targets.
When it deploys, it becomes a real threat. It starts firing from long distances, causes a lot of damage, and it's hard to get to it. But it's not mobile.
What? So there are 2 modes, one for moving, one for shooting. You cannot move in shooting mode. So it's like the StarCraft's siege tanks. So you deploy the siege tanks, they have better range and larger shells, but they cannot move. Or like the nuke cannon in Command and Conquer Generals. So if you play the Chinese, there's a nuke general with nuke cannons, which is basically a gigantic artillery that it has to deploy the ground locks, the claws, to dig into the ground, to lock the hull, and deploy the large barrel nuke cannon, since it's its name, whatever. But so for the STRV 103s and the UDES, in order to accurately fire the gun and DPM other opponents and enemies, you have to go into siege mode. So that means you're stuck there. So the main problem with this is there a time delay between the mobile mode, the moving mode, into the siege mode and back? If there's a time delay, then what that means is you will get shot at, you will get hit by artillery, and you will get flanked while you're turning yourself from siege mode into mobile mode. So that's one of the big problems with RTS. So vehicles like the siege tanks, like the nuke cannons, they cannot move when you're unlocking into the siege mode or repackage into the mobile mode. So I wonder if there's a time delay, but let's see.
It's worth noting that the vehicle is planned with very good firing characteristics, very high accuracy, good rate of fire, and high gun penetration. The only conditional drawback is low damage per shot.
Also, quick note, that STR-V103B was locked into siege mode on a cliff side. So does that mean when you're locked into siege mode, you do not, fall off a cliff? I wonder, but it's not that steep of a hill, but we'll see.
To switch into the siege mode, you need to press a special button. The time of deployment will be adjustable depending on the vehicle. Some vehicles will deploy in 1 to 2 seconds. Some will take a bit longer. After switching from one mode to another, you switch into the siege mode. So you can aim up and down with your mouse with the help of hydropneumatic suspension. It changes the vehicle collision model itself and allows you to aim vertically with the help of the hull.
Oh no. There is, at best, 1 to 2 seconds of intermediate switching between each mode, so it may take longer. Now, what's also worth noting is it takes about 7.02 seconds for the gun to reload from that clip. So I don't know if it's the preliminary stats, but the initial stats on the STR-V103B is that this vehicle reloads at 9.33 seconds. So they may have buffed it in the meantime, but we'll talk about the stats coming right up.
It will be very easy for players to do, because switching will take 1 to 2 seconds. It only takes one button, and it's already intuitively clear for the vehicles with limited gun traverse angles that have a hull lock.
So, for an experienced TD driver, there won't be many drastic changes, but the first important change is that you will now need to press the X key, because previously it wasn't necessary. You
The
can
hull
just
lock.
roll up and deliver fire without pressing it. And
That's
another
the hull
change,
lock.
constantly considered a drawback, is that you need time to switch into this mode and back.
It's a drawback. It's not possibly a drawback. It is a drawback. It's a huge drawback. 1 to 2 seconds means you're getting artillery, you're getting flanked, you're getting spotted after you shoot, and you're not mobile while you're switching out the mode. So if you play RTS, you know how 1 to 2 seconds is very important, like lifetime long.
Players just need to occupy a position, press X, switch into the mode, and deliver fire. The vehicle itself will adjust your aiming. I mean that the suspension will raise or lower the tank's front to follow your aim. That's why players won't need to perform any additional actions. Gun traverse is performed by hull traverse, also following the aim. So in general, the mechanics are identical to that of other TDs.
Quick note, did you realize how slow the traverse speed is while the STR-V103 is turning right here in this clip? It's not that fast. It's not like a T62A where it traverses around 55 degrees per second. No. So if you're traversing in this siege mode, you cannot really, circle, strafe, or not circle, prevent circle strafing on you from other tanks like light tanks or medium tanks. So you will get flanked. You will get butt rushed. Butt rushed? That's a new term, but whatever. So the traverse is not that fast.
but the vehicle will just aim a little bit more with the help of its hull, and change its collision model by lifting or lowering its hull.
For these mechanics, when the vehicle moves in this mode, in the siege mode, the effects of camouflage net and binocular telescope will stay.
That's
So
good.
we
That's
will be
amazing.
able to traverse the vehicle left and right and change gun elevation angles.
Yes.
But binocular
That's
telescope
very important.
and camouflage net will still be active, so this
Okay.
will be another pleasant bonus in addition to excellent concealment.
Whew, that was close. Whew.
Also, in the siege mode, the vehicle will be able to change the slope of the upper glacis plates that will allow players, if they are skilled enough, to use the hull to deflect shells and avoid damage, or just move away from the position, depending on what's more advantageous and convenient for the player. This is an interesting feature, because the vehicle is able to change its position significantly, and this can influence its protection.
Okay, it's been shot at by a T-57 Heavy and a Carnarvon. The T-57 Heavy has 258 millimeters of penetration, and the Carnarvon has 220-ish. So yeah, the armor's fairly decent.
Collision модель изменяемая, это вот основной такой
The
плюс.
vehicle collision model is changeable. It's a plus because a regular player will receive a very interesting vehicle,
Игрок еще и
while a very experienced player will also get a protection tool,
поворачиваться,
since the vehicle can be well placed in certain situations.
выравнивать себя. И при
When
этом
standing on a hill, it can level itself,
в некоторых моментах
while covering its underside
поворачиваться и
completely.
опускается так, чтобы увеличивать угол
It can turn and lower the hull to increase the angle for ricochets.
треугольный.
But its sharp angles and triangular armor encourage players to rely on them to save the vehicle's HP.
Сохранял себе, собственно, ХП и броню.
At Tier 10, we have a better protected vehicle. The STRV-103B is equipped with an anti-heat grid that will help players use armor more effectively. In general, the concept of Swedish tank building didn't use copious amounts of resources, but instead went the technological way of using the available resources rationally. The Swedish vehicles had low nominal armor thickness, but significant angles of armor inclination to produce a high number of ricochets.
Okay, it's a grid, so it's a cage armor. Now in the game, it's modeled to look like a cage armor, but in reality, it's a sheet of space armor. So it's like the Super Pershing, just a plate, or not really. The Super Pershing has two plates, so it's like the Panzer IV Schmalterm. Not the Schmal. Well, the Schmalterm doesn't have the mesh. All right, it's like the Panzer IV. So it's like the side skirts on the Panzer IV, except it's at the front, covering up the upper plate. So it's basically a plate of space armor to prevent high explosive anti-tank shell. Also, the best armor is only 60 millimeters. So it's only going to be overmatched by 180 millimeter guns. So not that many guns out there normally with that high caliber. So it's fairly decent, but we'll see. Well, I'll talk about the stats and the collision models.
Talking about the branch, or even the nation in general, we should point out the nice, fairly convenient penetrating guns of slightly low calibers and good dynamics, which many players like, and the ability to occupy good positions first and leave them first as well. If we talk about the 103B, I agree with everything said before. You can add the game mechanics of a siege mode, when a vehicle can't move but delivers fire more effectively than any other vehicle. And of course, it has almost outstanding concealment for such a high vehicle tier. Usually, the higher a vehicle's tier and size is, the worse its concealment is.
Not exactly. So vehicles like the Batchat, the Panzer IV Waffenträger, the Romtel Borsig, the E25 just negates that statement. So usually it is the higher tier the vehicle, usually the bigger they are, and therefore the camouflage rating is crappier. But vehicles like the Object 263, 268, the SU 122 54, yeah, exceptions. So that statement is wonky.
But concealment of this vehicle is about the same level as that of low-tier vehicles. Players will be able to use it very effectively. Three vehicles from the TD branch will have siege mode mechanics. They are Tier 8, 9, and 10 vehicles. The difference in mechanics at Tier 8 will be that the gun of this vehicle will have a certain degree of freedom in elevation, but to aim horizontally and for effective shooting in general, players will have to switch to the mode with additional depression angles, additional vertical freedom. This TD will prepare players for the fully fixed gun.
То есть эта машина как бы будет немного подготавливать игрока к полностью зафиксированному орудию.
This is a brand new mechanic. Firstly, it's calculated by our new physics, so all this happens on the server. Secondly, the gameplay on this vehicle will change from battle to battle depending on how the player uses it. Some players will use it just to deliver fire. Others will put the vehicle hull higher or lower in emergency situations to cover its lower or upper glacis plates and protect it from penetration. There are plenty of opportunities.
That's it? Oh, that's it, I guess. Well, so basically, there are two modes. One is the mobile mode, the moving mode, and the other one is the siege mode. So in order to effectively aim and shoot, you have to deploy imaginary claws into the ground, preventing you from moving in order for you to shoot. So like a siege tank or like a nuke cannon. So, I mean, could you just aim without, pressing the X button or the hull lock button and just aim? That would be more effective because it takes about 1 to 2 seconds at best to switch between the modes. Sometimes it's even longer for stuff like the Tier 8, presumably. So, yeah, in those 1 to 2 seconds or longer, you will get spotted if you shoot. You will be shot at from stuff like artillery. And this vehicle doesn't have that much armor on the top as well as in the front against artillery shells. And most high-tier vehicles, high-tier artilleries, they usually have around 200mm caliber guns or larger. And yeah, those hurt a lot if you get hit. Now the vehicle is a small target, so it's not likely to get hit, but the best armor is only 60mm. And even a splash of gigantic high explosive shell, yeah, you will take like half your health away because the low armor of the vehicle. So yeah, the deployment of the 1 to 2 seconds into siege mode is very wonky. Why couldn't it just be instantaneous, like just deploy, go, go, go? So why couldn't you just like press the hull lock and just switch? So hopefully on the test server we can test this out and put our feedbacks into the feedback section or for the developers to just switch out instantaneously or under 1 second, because the longer it takes for you to switch out between each mode, the more likely you're going to get hit. And high tiers have high caliber guns, so you will get penetrated, if not by normal tanks, then by artillery, and you will get outflanked because the traverse, as you saw, is not that fast. So I don't know, but the stats may change. Now you saw in the video that the gun reloads at 7.02 seconds, so that's around 10 rounds per minute. So it's like an Action X Centurion, so the reload is relatively fast in the video. Now I have the preliminary stats, the initial stats, the crude stats right here. So here is the STRV 103 B, the tier 10 version. So hit points is only 1,600, so that's very low. That's lower, 200 points lower than the Bat Chat and TVP T5051. So the lowest of tier 10 HP. The Object 263 has either 1800 or 1900, and the 268 has 2000? I don't remember, but yeah, 1600 hit points. That's super low. Engine power is 730 horsepower, weighs about 40 tons. So the horsepower per ton ratio is 18.1. So that's good, but it doesn't break the 25 horsepower per ton ratio that's on the UDES-03 at tier 8, presumably. But that's alright. That's not the fastest horsepower per ton ratio. It's like a medium tank. So it's like the Centurion Action X. So top speed is only 50 kilometers per hour. Reverse is 45. So the reverse is quite decent, but 50 kilometers per hour top speed, it's no 70. So it's no super fast. Traverse for the hull is only 35 degrees per second. So it's not like the 50 degrees per second of a T62A or Object 140. It doesn't turn that well. There's no turret traverse, obviously. Terrain resistance 0.8 for hard, 0.9 for medium, and 1.6 for soft. So that's average. Tier 10 medium tanks, average. At best, you could reach 0.4, 0.5, and 1.2 for the terrain resistance, and that's amazing. But it doesn't have it, so this thing will get bogged down half the time. View range is 370 meters, so not as good as the 380 meters that's on the Jagdpanzer E100 or other tank destroyers at tier 10, so blows. Radio range is very good, but superfluous, so 850. Hull armor is 40 at the front, 30 at the sides, and 30 at the rear. Now, there are some parts that are 60 millimeters, as you can see, the red parts. The 50 millimeters are covering the top, but if you do get shot at the top of the beak, that's only 40 millimeter, as well as the gun strip. So, yeah, most guns at tier 10 is at least 120 millimeter, calibers. So it will overmatch the 40 millimeter part if you get shot at the orange part by 150 millimeter plus gun, basically from any other tank destroyer other than, well, all tier 10 tank destroyers have high caliber guns over 150. No, not the 263. That's only 130. So most other tank destroyers will penetrate the orange part, and no other ones will penetrate the 60 millimeter. You have a grid, a cage armor at the front, which acts as space armor. The lower plate has additional space armor, so the only shooting at the upper plate most likely will penetrate than shooting the lower plate. But lower plate should be a smaller target if it's hull down. Can't talk. The gun is 105 millimeter L62. Very good penetration of 308 millimeters. Gold shell is 350. So pretty good penetration normally. But that's kind of superfluous for high penetration gun, because all you really need is about 280 millimeter to 290. Anything above that is basically gold shell for stuff like the mouse or the Type 4 and Type 5, because most vehicles do not need that much penetration. So unless you're shooting at blind shots into super thick armor, penetration is kind of superfluous, but whatever. Alpha is low, super low, one of the lowest for tier 10 TDs. Yeah, that's the lowest. 390 alpha, blah. DPM is kind of crap, only 2,500. Now this is preliminary stats. As you saw in the video, it's 7.03 seconds reload, or 7.02, whatever. But that's boosted from this reload. This reload is at 9.33 seconds. So the preliminary stats are preliminary, so they may buff it afterwards, but initially the DPM is low, reloads every 9.33 seconds, accuracy is 0.3, which is very good. Aim time is 3 seconds, so there's still an aim time with the siege mode. So basically, blah. Now, also take note of the space armor on the sides, so trollish. It's like the Batchat space armor at the rear of the turret. So interesting enough, here is a better shot of the space side armor, and the lower plate is space armor because it's a tractor ditch digger thing. But here are the preliminary stats from the mobile version of the game, so it's verified, but as you saw with the video, there's difference. But how do I feel about this vehicle? Well, first of all, it's a single shot, so it's not like the real STRV 103B, which has a auto-loading ammo rack thing. So it's like the IS-7 or like the IS-3A. It's an automatic mechanized ammo rack where the shell just travels down a tray into the gun barrel, into the breech, being shot at, ejected, and continuously to do that. So quickly has rapid reloads and rate of fire. So that's how it should work, but it doesn't reflect that in the game. So hopefully it has like 5 seconds reload. That would be amazing, but doesn't been reflected in the video. So that sucks. Also, the traverse is slow in the video, so sucks. The siege mode is questionable because it takes 1 to 2 seconds to deploy the siege mode, quote unquote. So yeah, you'll get flanked, you'll get shot at, you'll get artilleried during the time you're switching from siege mode into running away mode. So that sucks. And the view range sucks, the health sucks, and it's not always 60mm of armor at the front. So you will get penetrated by high penetration guns or high caliber guns like 150mm plus, especially from other tank destroyers, or super high penetration guns like I wouldn't say APCR shell would penetrate, but guns like the 140 on the Type 5 might penetrate. Take the shorter guns mostly will penetrate because overmatching of the armor, but you still have to take advantage of the space frontal armor, the grid armor, the cage armor at the front. So whatever, armor is situational, as I mentioned in the leak videos. So overall, disappointment. So health sucks, view range sucks, traverse sucks, top speed sucks, horsepower per ton ratio sucks, DPM sucks from initial stats, alpha obviously sucks, and the reload is not the crazy automatic loading system that should be on STRVs. So in general, it's just a new system to test the hydropneumatic suspension thing. So does the STB-1, the tier 10 Japanese medium tank, will have this system? Because that would increase the gun depression from 10 degrees to 12, but we'll see. So there you go, folks. My live reaction of the new mechanics for the Swedish tank destroyers. So is it that interesting? It's interesting, but for the gameplay wise, not that effective. So based on the meta, based on the current meta of World of Tanks, tank destroyers are, or sniping tank destroyers, are not really in, because they were in when the maps are large and not that corridory, but the developers switched into corridory maps and favored medium tanks with the nerf to tank destroyers like a year ago with the view range and the map changes. So it's not a tank destroyer meta, and this vehicle is the pure example of tank destroyer because it has to camp, it has to deploy the siege mode and camp to the fullest. So it's like the Grill 15. The Grill 15 is a camping sniping tank. It cannot be spotted. So do not use this vehicle as a battering ram. Do not use it as a, taking all the shots from different tanks. Don't test your luck, because you cannot just wiggle around on the battlefield and do a traverse circles and ignore shots, because you cannot traverse and shoot at the same time. You could drive around like a crazy headless chicken, but you cannot shoot at the same time, and you will get artillery. And this thing doesn't traverse as fast, doesn't have that great of a terrain resistance to do crazy circle drives. So yeah, it's disappointing. Sorry to burst your bubbles, but I expected better. I expected something like a tortoise with crazy reload, Even if you have the siege mode, but if you have the crazy reload to compensate, that would be amazing. But it doesn't have it. So they may buff the stats, and we'll see what happens. But hopefully they apply this siege mode to artillery. So deploy your artillery, you get better dispersion, better aim time, better accuracy, and better reload with your artillery. That would be amazing. But Sam, you're a scumbag. You play artillery. Rabble. So that's my opinion. But it's an interesting mechanic, but it's kind of excessive. Why couldn't you just aim the gun instantaneously or switch instantaneously? Why do you have to switch into a siege mode? That's beyond me. So whatever. It's interesting, but it's not effective for the current meta. It's anti-effective, counter to effective, not effective to the current meta, because it takes too long to set up. You get shot, artilleried, you're dead. So you get butt fucked, butt raped. So yeah, there you go, folks. That's my 2 cents. So maybe you see this in a different light from mine, but that's my 2 cents. But thank you guys for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.